Morning, good afternoon, good evening. Thank you all for joining us. Part 4 of the CUNY BMI Career Dialogues. This time, and for the last time, we'll have Ron lead us in a conversation with Zavi Gunn, Director of the Career Office at Queens College, my alma mater, as I mentioned before, best school in CUNY. And we have Rene Hernandez, who is a multifaceted associate director of so many different things at Baruch College, second best school in CUNY. And we will have Ron lead us in this conversation. Go ahead, Ron.
Good afternoon, good morning, good evening to everyone. This is probably the last installment of this particular series, the CUNY BMI Career Development Dialogue Series. And we've had three wonderful conversations to this point, and this is going to be just as wonderful with Ms. Rene Hernandez from Baruch College and Zavi Gunn from Queens College. We're going to talk a little bit about internships, how important they are, what they can do, what they have the ability to do, and why it's so important to think about them as early as possible. The 4 P's that I kind of lean on foundationally are purpose, priority, preparation, and presentation. And clearly, this is part of preparation for your career development, for your placement eventually. Most students come to colleges, and particularly students of color, and they look at work, they look at a job, they look at the afterlife from college. But clearly, the way the employment place is leveling out now, internships in some ways are more important than the job. They clearly have a specific strategic role, and we want to kind of go into that a little bit today. As a veteran of CUNY, I've always been concerned about how students of color, Black students in particular, and Latino students, are not in the pipeline for some very prestigious internships that are very strategic in placement. So I'd like to have Rene and Zavi just give us an overview of how you feel having a good internship is important to students in their development.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess, Zavi, I'll take the lead here. Internships has a lot to do with not just finding a job, right? A lot of times I used to look at internship as like this mini job that'll waste my time. I'm going out there to get this full-time job to make all of the money. And I didn't realize in the beginning of my job search that the easiest way to get a job was to be in an internship. Not only did I get hands-on experience in the fields that I wanted to be in, it was also a way to network, right? Because we know nowadays a lot of the jobs are given to students or given to employees who know other people, right? So it's all about who you know. So internships is really important, especially when you're starting college, when you're starting to think about what you want to do, where you want to go. And it's almost like an insight into the different career fields that you're interested in. So let's say if you start off interested in accounting and you get an internship in accounting, and then you realize this is not the environment that I want to be in, it's easier to pull out of an internship or complete an internship and kind of pivot your career field. So that's why I feel it's really important. I think it gives you an insight on your jobs. It helps you to network, and also gives you some hands-on experience.
Yes, I agree with Rene. Internship is an opportunity to network. It's also a learning experience for students, right? To figure out, like, do I want to work in this particular job industry or in this particular environment? So I see it as being twofold. It's a learning experience for students. It also helps the employer to kind of have you work with them for a few months to figure out if they want to offer you a full-time job offer in the future. So internships are really crucial for our students as they navigate the tens of thousands different careers that are out there. So I strongly recommend that students do 3 internships before graduation, and internships is part of the experiential learning umbrella. So whether it's an internship or if it's field work or research or volunteerism, all that falls under experiential education. So you need to have, I would say, about 3 of those before you graduate, because this will help you figure out what you like and what you don't like. From my personal experience, I did an internship while I was in college. I was going to be a politician. And I did the internship and I said, no, maybe in 20 years I'll be a politician, but not now. So I hope students take the value of doing an internship to figure out what they like and what they don't like.
At what point do you start to impress upon students the importance of their own career readiness and literacy when they come to Baruch or Queens College? At what point do we start to talk about career readiness and career literacy in terms of finding out and preparing themselves to get one of these really exclusive internships? At what point do we start that?
Yeah, so at Baruch, the program that I run is called Success Amplified, and we help the undergraduate students to transition into college and to graduate. So the moment that they actually enter into Baruch, actually a couple of weeks before, because that's when I am able to meet them, we actually start implementing that during our boot camp session. And boot camp is pretty much when we invite all of our new undergraduate students, our returning students, to pretty much come together as a community. These are particularly our Black and Brown students as well at Baruch College, where they're able to meet each other, they're able to practice their networking skills. We do this assessment with them called the Clifton Strengths, and we emphasize that their top strengths is going to be really important when it comes to teamwork, when it comes to working, when it comes to doing anything in your classrooms, or really anything at all. Knowing your strengths is really important so that you can understand where you're the best at and what you need to work on, right? So we actually start implementing that idea into them the day 2 weeks before the semester even starts, or 2 weeks before their first day of school. And then we continue to implement that every single semester. So we have different workshops, we have one-on-one meetings, we have professionals coming in and letting our students know what it means to start networking, what it means to start thinking about your internship. When I was in college, or actually before that, when I started college a little bit later, but I still didn't know anything about internships and networking. The thought in my mind was go to college, get an A, get a job, right? So we're working at the same time that we're going to college. We're taking care of our families at the same time we're going to college. There's not a lot of time to network, and we never really taught the strategies on how to work around that. So I feel like now students are in this maze kind of labyrinth, trying to figure out work-life balance, how to make sure that they have time for themselves, their well-being, their mental health, and at the same time being told to do, all of the basic traditional steps in order to get this job. So because they don't have the time, what we do is we try to teach them from the beginning. If we tell them from day one or before day one, they then start to think about their own strategies from the ones that we teach them to get into those internships, to get into those jobs. We also use our prior students, or our graduate students and our returning students, as an example, because they come back to boot camp as well, and they're able to talk about their experiences and let the students know where to go. How do we talk to the Star Career Development Center? How do we sign up for our accounts? What is an internship, right? A lot of our students may not know what an actual internship is before they get to college. So one of the things we really do try to do is make sure that our students know, and before they even start classes in the summertime, that this is something we need to be thinking about, because you're not just coming to college to get an A. You're coming to college to be successful and get a job and have a career that you love, right? And this is some of the steps that you need to take.
So I'll add, Queens College, we have students do the Focus 2. It's also career assessment, and it helps students look at their values, their interests, their personality, their skills, and kind of map it to different career pathways. And from those career pathways, you can look at, well, what are some of the majors that could potentially put me down this particular pathway? And so it's really key to have students do a self-assessment, as Rene mentioned early, and then start coming up with a career action plan. What is my plan for my first year in college? What is my plan for my second, third, and fourth year in college? And even some people have 5 or 6 years, right? What is your career plan? And be able to map out strategies to be able to fit in an internship. I have high expectations for students. So I do tell freshmen, you could do an internship your first year. You can do, and some folks may tell students, no, just wait, get settled. If you're really passionate, you can do an internship within your first year of school. And so you can start applying in the fall semester and do an internship for the spring or do an internship for the summer. So I think getting students engaged early, Ron, as early as their freshman year, start looking at internship opportunities are really important. Part of the development is career readiness development. So in addition to looking at internship, there are great programs, and I'll give a plug to one of our program partners, which is America Needs You. They provide professional development opportunities on the weekends for student, couple of hours. And in addition to professional development opportunities, they provide them mentors, which is like outside of class, outside of the career center, right? And those students with America Needs Me fellows, they then become a cohort. And part of that program, students then get a mentor, and then they get opportunities to apply for internships for their second and third year in that program. So there are different professional programs out there, nonprofit organizations that we could direct our students to, Ron, that really looks at diversity program, diversifying the workforce, and engaging students early in a cohort model so that they have a system for professional development.
You know, in this whole, in this career planning and career education, there's a language, and clearly, I'm picking up on some of the words you're mentioning: relationships, networking. What is it that an internship will do for a person? Give me the most important thing you think an internship will do for a student.
Sure. I think it helps them figure out what they like or don't like, right? It also gives them that professional experience in that particular industry within that workforce. So I think most importantly, from a student perspective, it's really learning about the organization, learning about the industry, and of course, developing relationships with folks in that area. So that's what I think is most important. From an employer perspective, it's also trying to recruit talent for full-time opportunities and also just having someone work to help them with their workload. So I think it's, you know, definitely mutually beneficial to do multiple internships before graduation.
Yeah, and of course, I would just add to that. One thing I know that with working with the population of students that we have here, this program was created because students of color were graduating and getting jobs at a way lower rate than their other student counterparts, right? So when we look at that, we need to figure out, well, why is that happening? And for some of the reasons I mentioned earlier, working, parents are working, first generation families, immigrant families, all of those reasons. So I think there's a huge benefit in looking into doing internships early because you're able to develop some soft skills that you wouldn't probably have otherwise known about, right? So going to a professional development workshop where you can do something, maybe some day-to-day interactions with others, that where you're working on projects, where you're trying to help develop important interpersonal skills, working on your time management, leadership skills, right? You're also evaluating your career choice, right? A lot of the times we don't know what's out there and what is available to us. We may want to be an accountant, but don't know how many different positions and how many different spaces there are in the career field of accounting, right? Are you doing accounting in marketing? Are you doing accounting in law, right? Or how are you mixing all this up? So I think there's definitely a benefit when it comes to evaluating what the career choice is, which is important when you're trying to look for something that you love, when you're trying to look for something that you are passionate about. The internship kind of gives you a peek into what that job field is so that you can make some changes, and this way not fully committing to something that you may not actually like at all. You give yourself some time to really think about what are my next steps and what do I need to do to get into the positions that I want to, or to create the position that I want. There's a lot of times that you can create the position that you want. Doing internships and networking, you actually show people or show the employers, right, that you have other skills and you're developing it at the same time. You may go into a new job, and because of all of your internships, you're at least 3, right? We're doing at least 3 out of college. Coming out of that with all of these skills, you may go into a new job and realize that they need help in certain areas that they may not have seen. That is how you create your own position, especially when you're doing something that you love, right? So I think there's a huge benefit when it comes to developing soft skills and then also evaluating your career choice.
Most in my experience, most Black students coming to colleges come with a lot of misconceptions, bad ideas, horrible habits, and somewhat delusional about choice making. So when I look at internships, how fast do they take one? Everybody has a different level of readiness. I used to wait until their junior year to at least the first 2 years gather habits, change their strategies, get more focused. But now internships are happening a lot sooner. So as career educators and developers and supporters, we've got to take students coming into our campuses right away and get them to start to rethink all of this. The clock is ticking very quickly now, and it puts a lot more pressure on us. So as we look at how do we get them ready for these fabulous internships that exist, they've got their academics and they've got their aspirations, what is it about us as Black people? What do we have to instill in them to get them to go from bad habits to the ones that we need to shape them to move them quicker?
There's a lot of self-reflection that goes on with that one. Because the first place you need to start is within yourself. What are your beliefs? What are you believing? Who are you believing? Who are you around, right? What are some of my behaviors that don't have seemed to be successful in some ways, but not successful in other ways? So what I like to do is I like to be as honest with my students as possible. Like, we're talking real deal. We already know the situation. We are all Black and brown, right? And we have Black and brown challenges. And we can walk into any room and immediately we're at a deficit, right? Just because of the color of our skin or the texture of our hair. Oops, did I mute myself? Am I unmuted? Okay. Or even just the way that we speak. So it's really important for my students to understand themselves first before they're able to figure out or go out there and talk to others. Because if you don't understand what your weaknesses are, then you'll just continue with those weaknesses, right? You won't really grow. So I want them to have a growth mindset, and we start where they are. We don't kind of come in and give them, a checklist of things to do and say, good luck, adios, see you in 4 years, hope for the best. We really want to know where that student is in their life in general, right? Are you working all the time? And what kind of job do you have? Have you started looking for internships? Let me see what your resume looks like, right? A lot of students they're looking at resumes and they're like, I have, Radio Shack. I just said my age, right? I don't think they're working at Radio Shack anymore, but they have like different jobs on there that has nothing to do with the career fields that they want. And it's only because, it could be parents and family and whoever it is around in those recent years that's telling them they need to work. They have to get a job. They have to contribute, right? They have to pay their own bills. They have to get out there and support themselves. And then at the same time, they're coming to college and we have no idea. When I first got to college, I had no idea what I was doing. I was working and I was going to school and I was trying to get that A. And I was like, all right, when I graduate and I get that piece of paper, I'm golden. I'm going to make $100,000 and I'll be fine. Right. And that's not how it is. That is one of the lies that is sold to a lot of people in general, but a lot more of the Black and brown students. So I would say that it is a lot of self-reflection to figure out where we are and really understand all of the challenges and all of the walls and the brick walls and everything that we actually had to go through and that we were up against that put us in a position, because it's not necessarily the student's fault, right? I had a student that I interviewed just about yesterday, I think it was, or the day before, and it was for one of our scholarships, and he said that he got left back in the 5th grade, and he was like, yeah, I was a bad student, and that's why I got left back. I was like, no, it's not because you were a bad student in the 5th grade. First of all, you were 8, right? You were being 8 years old. You did not have the resources and the support, or enough resources and support around you, where you could really support yourself, not even support yourself, but hone into what your best attributes are, right? So those weren't there around you. So you were just being 8 years old. You had no idea. So it was really just him changing his mindset and not blaming himself for being in the position that he's in. So for me, it's a lot of self-reflection first before we get into the actual strategies to become successful.
Yeah, so the idea that we want to get students prepared as quickly as possible to transition from where they were to where we want them to go. Habits, belief systems, career literacy, all those kinds of things are what we have to do as matchmakers, guardians, and teachers to get them to transition from where they were to where we want them to go. So, as we look at this transition, the language that we have to speak to our students to help with this transition is a language of career education, career development. Internships are becoming more and more exclusive. Students have higher expectations of where they want to go. How do you, as practitioners, what do you instill upon them to get them to think that in order to get an exclusive internship, we're asking students to change and to transition to?
Feel like I don't think students have to change. I feel like they need to be authentic and they need to grow and develop, right? Because that's what college is, right? It's like becoming a professional. So I think I help them shift the mindset to make it more like optimistic and like, what are the skills you have? What are the skills that you want to develop? How do we get from point A through point Z? What are some of the things that we have to put into it so that you could really be successful? And so I think many employers, they want someone that shows initiative, right? Someone who has, as Rene mentioned, a growth mindset, right? Like willing to learn new things, someone who is agile. So I think with what students really need to look at is, what can you bring to the organization? What are some of those transferable skills, right? So let's say if you were working in retail, customer service experience is very important in anything. Like nowadays, a very hot topic is like technology sales, right? Like working at a lot of these firms, you're like selling a technology product. So imagine doing an internship where you're taking your customer service skills that you did in retail and you're applying it to like working within sales. So I think those are the things that we have to encourage our students to do, is like, look at your experiences, look at where you're volunteered, look at how you've helped your family, and what are those transferable skills that you can take and bring to this particular organization. So I think it's really just being their champion and being able to market themselves and brand themselves. Your resume is just a piece of paper, right? It just says who, what, when, where. What you want to do now is really be able to show who you are as an individual, and you have to brand yourself as an individual authentically. And that's what doing an internship helps you to build those skills. Because I want to leave the students with facts, right? So according to NACE, the National Association of Colleges and Employers, students who participate in paid internship receive 8 to $12,000 more on their starting salary. So that is a reason, a monetary reason, that you should really do an internship before graduating, because it's a way for you to develop work experience. It's a way for you to negotiate that starting salary offer. So I think just keep that in mind. There's a lot of value in internships, especially paid internships, that I really encourage students to really take advantage of it. And I agree with Rene from her experience. It's like you have to work and go to school. Wherever you're working, like let's say if you're studying accounting and you're working at, I don't know, a doctor's office, maybe you could shadow the bookkeeper 2 hours a week just to get that internship experience, just to understand the software. So look at your experience and kind of see like, how can you do an internship where you are or within the field that you're interested in? Because at the end of the day, you could be negotiating $8,000 to $12,000 more on a starting salary.
And I think that Zavi wrapped it up perfectly. The students who are watching this, internship means money, and money can mean an internship. So again, on behalf of the CUNY BMI team, Rene and Zavi and Jorge, thank you very much for participating in today's discussion.